Ladies and gentlemen, profit has been elevated to a false god, worshipped as if it were the ultimate measure of success. But what does profit really mean when it thrives on exploitation, when it sacrifices workers' dignity, and when it turns human needs into commodities? Our system glorifies profit over people, over community, over sustainability. We must ask who truly benefits when profit is king and who pays the price. Profit has been turned into the highest ideal of our economic system, a measure of success that overshadows every other human value. When we look at how businesses operate, profit is the ultimate goal, the deciding factor for every choice and the reason for every action. Yet, this pursuit of profit is not neutral. It prioritizes wealth for a small segment of society while neglecting the needs of the many. We live in a world where entire industries are structured to maximize the returns of a few investors, often at the expense of the workers who create the very wealth they celebrate. Think about the wages that remain stagnant while corporate profits soar, or the fact that decisions to cut costs and downsize workers are justified because they increase shareholder value. This is not a system designed to meet the needs of people. It is a system designed to funnel resources upward, leaving millions struggling while a small minority hoards unprecedented wealth. The prioritization of profit transforms our workplaces into arenas where efficiency is valued over humanity. So workers are not seen as creative individuals with dreams and aspirations, but as costs to be minimized. When profit reigns, safety measures can be ignored, wages can be suppressed, and job security can be treated as expendable because these sacrifices are considered necessary for the health of the business. But what kind of health is it when the vitality of an economy is measured not by the well-being of its people, but by the size of a company's profit margins? It is a distorted vision of success that encourages greed and rewards those who exploit others most effectively. Profit also influences how we view the natural world. Companies extract resources with little regard for the environment because preserving the planet is not profitable in the short term. We see forests cut down, rivers polluted, and air filled with toxins because those who control capital C nature as a mere resource to be consumed for financial gain. When profit becomes the God we worship, sustainability is sacrificed and the future of our children is jeopardized. The costs of this mindset are hidden, shifted onto communities and future generations who will bear the burden of climate crisis, rising seas, and the destruction of ecosystems that cannot be replaced. The relentless drive for profit blinds us to these consequences because the focus is on quarterly earnings, not the health of our planet or the survival of our species. In this system, the voices of the many are silenced by the power of the few who control wealth. When profit dominates, policies are shaped not by what benefits society, but by what benefits corporations. Lobbyists funded by corporate profits influence laws and regulations to protect the interests of the wealthy. Tax loopholes are created, minimum wage increases are resisted, and workers' rights are eroded because these measures threaten to reduce profit. The result is a society where the majority work longer and harder for less, while the wealth generated by their labor flows into the hands of an elite class that holds power, not just economically, but politically. This imbalance of power perpetuates a cycle where profit continues to reign supreme and the needs of ordinary people are left behind. The culture of profit also changes how we define success in our personal lives. We are taught to admire those who amass fortunes regardless of how they achieved them. A billionaire is celebrated as a genius or a visionary, even if their wealth was built on the suffering of workers or the destruction of communities. This glorification of profit making distorts our values, teaching us that the worth of a person is tied to the amount of money they earn rather than their contributions to the well-being of others. It is a culture that encourages competition over cooperation, selfishness over solidarity, and greed over generosity. When profit becomes the ultimate goal, we begin to lose sight of what it means to live a good life, one rooted in compassion, justice, and shared humanity. Profit prioritization also manifests in how public services are treated. Education, healthcare, and housing, fundamental human needs, are increasingly privatized and turned into opportunities for profit. When a hospital is run like a business, decisions are made not on the basis of saving lives, but on cutting costs and increasing revenue. So when education is treated as a commodity, students are burdened with debt while institutions chase funding that aligns with corporate interests. Housing becomes an investment vehicle, driving up prices and displacing families because profit is more important than providing shelter. This approach turns the very pillars of a healthy society into tools for wealth extraction, leaving the most vulnerable without access to basic necessities. We must also consider how profit shapes global relationships. Companies move factories to countries with the lowest labor costs and weakest protections, exploiting workers who have little power to resist. This race to the bottom is justified by the need to increase profits, but it creates a global system of inequality where workers in one country are pitted against those in another, all to benefit multinational corporations. Communities are left devastated when jobs are shipped overseas and workers abroad are often paid poverty wages with no rights or safety protections. This is not a system built on fairness or mutual benefit. It is a system that rewards exploitation on a global scale, all in the name of profit. Furthermore, profit-driven economies thrive on creating artificial needs. Advertisers manipulate our desires, convincing us that happiness comes from consuming more, from buying the latest gadgets or fashions, from keeping up with trends that change by design. This cycle of consumption feeds profit, but it leaves people empty, constantly chasing fulfillment through material goods that can never satisfy the deeper human need for connection, purpose, and meaning. Profit thrives on our dissatisfaction, and entire industries exist to perpetuate it, keeping us hooked on a treadmill of consumption that benefits the wealthy while draining the spirit of ordinary people. aims. When we examine the roots of profit, we see that it often comes from paying workers less than the value they produce. This fundamental exploitation is hidden beneath the language of efficiency and market forces, but at its core, it is about taking from the many to enrich the few. A worker may spend hours creating a product, but the profit from that labor goes to owners and shareholders who often have little to do with the actual work. This unequal distribution of wealth is not an accident. It is built into the very structure of capitalism, which elevates profit above all else. It is a system that rewards those who own rather than those who labor. And as a result, the wealth gap widens while workers struggle to make ends meet. Profit as a false god is dangerous because it distorts our sense of morality. It justifies actions that would otherwise be seen as wrong, laying off workers, raising prices on essential goods, destroying natural habitats, because these actions are framed as necessary for survival in a competitive market. It encourages companies to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability, leading to crises like financial collapses, environmental disasters, and social unrest. It creates a mindset where the question is not, is this right, but will this increase profit? And that question alone guides decisions that affect million guides decisions. The pursuit of profit has always been as printed as the engine that drives progress, innovation, and economic growth. But in reality, it is often the force that deepens exploitation and economic inequality. So when profit becomes the sole objective of an economy, every decision is framed in terms of what generates the highest return. It's not what is just or humane. This obsession with maximizing profit creates a dynamic where workers are treated not as human beings with dignity and rights, but as resources to be used, exploited, and discarded when no longer deemed useful. A system built on profit alone prioritizes cutting labor costs above all else, leading to stagnant wages, deteriorating working conditions, and the erosion of basic rights that workers have fought for over centuries. The rise of temporary contracts, gig work, and low paid service jobs is not a reflection of progress, but of an economic structure that extract as much value as possible from human labor while giving back as little as possible in return. When profit is placed above people, exploitation becomes normalized and even celebrated as efficiency or smart business strategy. A company that outsources its manufacturing to countries with weak labor protections is praised for saving costs and boosting profits. So while the workers in those countries endure poverty wages, unsafe conditions, and no chance at upward mobility, these workers are often forced to work long hours in factories with little regard for their health or well-being, all so that wealthy corporations and their investors can enjoy higher profit margins. It is a system that rewards the exploitation of the vulnerable and punishes those who seek fairness. Workers who demand better wages or conditions are told that such improvements would harm profitability, as though human dignity and corporate survival are incompatible goals. This is the harsh reality of a profit-driven world. The same pattern is seen within nations where inequality grows year after year because the rewards of economic growth are funneled to the top. While workers' productivity has risen, their wages have remained stagnant, and the wealth they create is captured by owners, executives, and shareholders. The middle class, once seen as the foundation of economic stability, is shrinking under the pressure of rising costs and stagnant paychecks. Meanwhile, the richest individuals and corporations accumulate vast fortunes, often paying little to no taxes because the system is designed to favor those who already have wealth. The tax codes, the trade policies, and then the labor laws are written with the interests of the powerful in mind, and all under the justification that protecting profit somehow benefits everyone. But the evidence is clear. The wealthiest continue to grow richer while the majority struggle to survive. This inequality is not accidental. It is the direct result of a system that views workers' needs as secondary to the demands of investors. In boardrooms across the world, decisions are made based on the single question of how to increase profits, regardless of the social cost. Entire industries are built on squeezing more work out of employees while paying them less, forcing them to rely on debt to cover basic necessities. The gig economy, often presented as a model of flexibility and freedom, is in many cases a new form of exploitation where workers have no benefits, no job security, and no power to bargain for fair wages. The companies that profit from this arrangement are celebrated as innovative, while the workers are left with unpredictable incomes and mounting stress. The pursuit of profit also distorts the relationship between employers and employees. And instead of being valued as partners in the creation of wealth, workers are viewed as liabilities whose costs must be minimized. This mindset encourages companies to cut corners on safety to avoid offering healthcare or retirement benefits, and to oppose unionization efforts that would give workers a voice. When workers try to organize for better conditions, they are often met with aggressive resistance, including layoffs, intimidation, or legal battles. Why? Because empowering workers threatens the flow of profit to the top, and in a system that worships profit. Such empowerment is seen as a threat to the very foundation of the economy. Profit-driven exploitation extends beyond the workplace and into the lives of entire communities. Factories and businesses close down when companies decide they can make more money elsewhere, leaving behind ghost towns and unemployed families. These decisions are not made because the businesses are failing, but because they can achieve even higher profits by moving operations to places with cheaper labor or fewer regulations. The communities left behind are told to adapt to find new ways to survive, but the reality is that they were abandoned for the sake of profit. This cycle of abandonment is repeated across industries, from manufacturing to retail, with devastating effects on the social fabric of countless towns and cities. The pursuit of profit also plays a central role in creating and sustaining global inequality. Corporations seek out the cheapest labor markets in the world, often exploiting workers in developing nations who lack the protections and rights that workers, that wealthier countries have fought to achieve. These workers may earn only a fraction of what their labor is worth, and yet their exploitation is justified by the need for profit. The global supply chain is built on the suffering of millions of people, from garment workers to miners to farmers, whose livelihoods are controlled by powerful corporations. These corporations wield immense power, dictating the terms of trade and pushing down wages, all while presenting themselves as forces of progress and development. Moreover, the profit motive often compels companies to ignore ethical boundaries. Exploitation is not limited to labor, it extends to consumers as well. Products are designed to break down quickly so that people are forced to buy replacements, a practice known as planned obsolescence, which increases profits but wastes resources and harms the environment. Companies market harmful products, be it unhealthy foods, addictive substances, or technologies that invade privacy, because these products generate revenue regardless of their impact on society. When the primary measure of success is profit, morality becomes secondary, and decisions that harm individuals or communities are easily justified as the cost of doing business. This obsession with profit also fosters economic instability. When companies prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability, they take risks that can lead to financial crises. We have seen this time and again in the global economy, where speculative bubbles and reckless investments are driven by the desire to maximize returns quickly. When these bubbles burst, it is ordinary people who suffer, losing their jobs, their homes, and their savings, while the wealthy are often bailed out or shielded from the consequences. The pursuit of profit, thus, not only creates inequality, but also perpetuates cycles of boom and bust that destabilize entire economies. Even in times of crisis, the logic of profit prevails. During a pandemic, companies raise prices on essential goods, turning a moment of collective vulnerability into an opportunity for greater profit. Workers in essential industries are praised as heroes while being paid poverty wages, forced to risk their health for the sake of keeping profits flowing. The health of the economy, we are told, depends on the ability of companies to continue making money, even if it comes at the expense of human lives. This ruthless prioritization of profit over people exposes the true nature of the system we live in. The pursuit of profit not only exploits, but divides people. It fosters a mindset of competition rather than cooperation, pitting workers against each other in a fight for limited opportunities. Employers use this competition to their advantage, suppressing wages and benefits because they know workers fear unemployment. Meanwhile, those who accumulate wealth are presented as deserving winners, while those who struggle are blamed for their own hardships, as though they simply failed to work hard enough. This narrative obscures the reality of structural exploitation, keeping people from uniting against the forces that keep them oppressed. A just society must value people and community over profit, for without this foundation, no economy can truly serve humanity. When the pursuit of profit overshadows the needs of people, we lose sight of the very purpose of an economy, which should be to provide for the well-being of all. A society built around profit places wealth accumulation at the top, treating human beings as secondary considerations, as tools to produce financial gains for others. This structure distorts our priorities, focusing on what is most lucrative rather than what is most beneficial for the common good. A just society demands the opposite approach. It demands that we see every individual as inherently valuable, that we measure success by the quality of life we create for all, not by the balance sheets of corporations. Community is the heart of a just society. It is in the connections between people, in the support systems we build for other, that we find strength and meaning. Yet profit-driven systems erode these bonds. When companies prioritize profit above all else, they often abandon communities that are no longer deemed profitable, shutting down factories, cutting jobs, and leaving entire towns without opportunities. A just society would not allow communities to be treated as expendable. It would invest in people, ensuring that everyone has access to meaningful work, fair wages, and the resources they need to live with dignity. True prosperity is not found in the wealth of a few, but in the collective health, education, and happiness of the many. To value people over profit means to recognize that human needs cannot always be commodified. Healthcare, education, housing, and clean water are not privileges that should be subject to the whims of market forces. They are fundamental rights. Yet, in a profit-driven system, these necessities are turned into products to be bought and sold, often at prices that exclude the most vulnerable. A just society would ensure that these basic needs are met for everyone, not because it is profitable, but because it is the right thing to do. It would not tolerate a situation where some people die because they cannot afford medical care while pharmaceutical companies and private hospitals make billions in profits. So when we value people and community, we also begin to think differently about work. So work should not simply be a means to generate profit for employers. It should be an opportunity for individuals to contribute meaningfully to society, to grow, to express creativity, and to build a life of stability and dignity. A just society would ensure that workers share in the wealth they create. It would not allow a small group of executives and shareholders to take the majority of the gains while the people who produce the value struggle to survive. This means restructuring workplaces so that workers have a voice, a stake, and a say in the decisions that affect their lives. It means moving away from a system that treats labor as a disposable cost and toward one that treats labor as the foundation of all economic success. So valuing community also requires a shift in how we understand success. Today, success is too often measured by profit margins, stock prices, and the personal fortunes of billionaires. But these metrics tell us nothing about whether people are thriving, whether communities are strong, or whether the environment is healthy. A just society would measure success in terms of well-being, equality, and sustainability. Are people healthy and educated? Do they have access to decent housing? Are we protecting the planet for future generations? These are the questions that matter, and they cannot be answered by profit alone. Profit-driven systems divide people, creating a culture of competition where individuals and communities are pitted against one another for scarce resources. A just society, on the other hand, is built on cooperation and solidarity. It understands that we are stronger when we work together, when we share resources and support each other. This spirit of solidarity is essential for tackling the great challenges of our time: climate change, inequality, and the erosion of democratic rights. These are collective problems that cannot be solved by individual pursuit of profit. They require collective action and a commitment to the common good. Valuing people over profit also means rejecting the idea that economic growth at any cost is always good. Growth that destroys the environment, exploits workers, and widens inequality is not true progress. A just society would prioritize sustainable growth that benefits everyone, not just the wealthy. It would invest in renewable energy, in public infrastructure, in education and healthcare, because these investments create real value for communities. It would recognize that the well-being of people and the planet is far more important than the quarterly earnings reports of multinational corporations. A society that values people would also ensure that power is not concentrated in the hands of a few. When profit dominates, those who control wealth also control politics, media, and culture. This concentration of power undermines democracy as decisions are made to serve the interests of the few rather than the needs of the many. A just society would democratize not only politics, but also the economy. It would encourage cooperative businesses, worker-owned enterprises, and other models where people have a direct say in how wealth is created and distributed. This shift would empower communities, giving them control over their own destinies rather than leaving them at the mercy of distant corporations. To put people and community first, we must also rethink the way we use resources. A profit-driven system often prioritizes short-term gains, leading to overconsumption, waste, and environmental destruction. A just society would focus on stewardship, caring for the planet and its resources so that future generations can thrive. This requires shifting away from industries that harm the environment and investing in practices that are sustainable and regenerative. It means valuing clean air, fresh water, and healthy ecosystems as much as, if not more than, financial profits. The values of compassion, fairness, and shared responsibility are at the core of a just society. These values remind us that an economy is not an abstract machine, but a human creation, something we can shape to serve our collective needs. When profit is treated as the ultimate goal, these values are eroded, replaced by greed and competition. But when we center people and community, we build systems that reflect our highest ideals. We create societies where no one is left behind, where the measure of success is not how much wealth a few have accumulated, but how well we care for each other. This shift requires a fundamental change in our mindset. We must stop asking, how much profit can we make, and start asking, how can we improve the lives of all? We must stop viewing workers as costs to be cut and start seeing them as partners in creating shared prosperity. We must stop celebrating billionaires as heroes and start honoring those who dedicate their lives to helping others, to building strong communities, to making the world better for everyone.